All right, let's talk about something that's on everyone's mind, but rarely gets said out loud. I'm not here to give you a list of bedroom tricks like it's some kind of performance checklist. I'm here to help you understand what's really going on beneath the surface, because behind every desire, even the roughest ones, is an emotion, a story, and a craving for deeper connection. So today, we're going to peel back the layers. This isn't just about what men want. It's about why they want it, why certain moves spark something wild inside them, why dominance, power, and surrender are more than just physical acts. They're windows into vulnerability, trust, and confidence. There's a moment right before any physical interaction when the air thickens, hearts beat faster, and everything hangs in that fragile silence between two people. In that moment, tension builds. It's electric, but also delicate. That tension can either ignite incredible chemistry or it can dissipate into uncertainty. What turns that tension into chemistry, what transforms anticipation into something magnetic, isn't just physical touch, it's confidence. It's the energy you bring into the space. It's how sure you are of yourself, your desires, and the emotional safety you offer your partner. When you walk into that moment with grounded confidence, not arrogance, everything changes. The way you move, the way you hold eye contact, the way you touch, it all becomes intentional. And intentionality is sexy. It tells the other person, I know what I'm doing and I want you to enjoy every second of it. Confidence is not about being loud, forceful, or dominating. It's the quiet knowing that you are enough exactly as you are. That kind of inner belief creates a ripple effect. It allows your partner to relax, to surrender, and to stop overthinking. Because when you're confident, you create certainty. And certainty is incredibly attractive in moments of vulnerability, especially when the topic is rough sex, an arena charged with intensity, boundaries, and trust. The need for confidence is not optional, it's essential. Without it, things can quickly feel awkward, performative, or worse, unsafe. With it, you create an emotional container where boldness isn't just accepted, it's welcomed. Boldness, when paired with emotional intelligence, becomes a powerful language. It's not just about pulling hair or pinning someone down. It's about reading body language, knowing when to push and when to pause. It's about understanding that rough sex isn't about violence. It's about expression. It's the kind of boldness that says, I want you in the most unapologetic way, and I'm not afraid to show it. That boldness doesn't come from a script or a checklist. It comes from doing the inner work, from knowing your own desires, and from respecting the boundaries of the person you're with. When a man craves roughness, he's not always just seeking intensity. He's seeking to be wanted with urgency. He's craving a moment where control and surrender blur into one electric experience. When you approach that space with confidence, you invite him into a world where he can let go, where he can feel raw and real and masculine. And that kind of dynamic isn't created by chance. It's created by someone who owns their boldness without apology. Someone who knows that sex isn't about perfection. It's about presence. The beauty of chemistry is that it's not forced, it's felt. It builds in the space between words, in the tension before a kiss, in the look you give before your hands do the talking. That's where confidence lives. In the moments that don't need to be filled with performance, confidence allows you to take that tension and lean into it, to turn silence into heat, to turn hesitation into a pulse of excitement. And once you've mastered that, everything else becomes effortless. You don't need to memorize what men crave. You feel it in the moment. You follow instinct. You become the bold one who doesn't ask for permission to be seductive, powerful, or in control. You become the fantasy he didn't know he needed. Owning your boldness isn't just about what you do. It's about how you see yourself. It's about shedding the fear of being too much or too forward, and realizing that your desires are valid, your instincts are sharp, and your confidence is a gift. Because when you step into that version of yourself, you give him permission to do the same. You create an experience where both of you are fully present, fully alive, and fully expressed. That's when sex becomes more than physical. It becomes emotional, spiritual, and unforgettable. Confidence doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you're not afraid to ask the right questions, to check in, to lead with clarity, and to bring your whole self into the room. The bedroom isn't a stage, and you're not an actress trying to hit the right notes. You're a powerful, sensual force who understands that the most magnetic energy you can bring is the energy of being completely in tune with yourself. And when that self is bold, grounded, and confident, you don't just create chemistry, you create a spark that lingers long after the moment is over. Men don't just crave moves, they crave the feeling behind the moves. The energy that says, I'm here, I'm sure, I want this, and I want you. That energy doesn't come from copying what someone else did or trying to be someone you're not. It comes from doing the work to trust yourself, to listen to your body, to speak up about what excites you, and to embrace what excites him without fear or shame. That's what makes a moment go from ordinary to electric. That's what turns rough into unforgettable. That's what makes a man feel seen, wanted, and pulled into a connection that hits on every level, physical, emotional, and psychological. So when you think about chemistry, don't just think about what you're doing. Think about how you're showing up. Think about the energy you carry, the confidence in your touch, and the certainty in your eyes. Because confidence isn't just what turns tension into chemistry, it's what transforms sex into a language of deep desire, trust, and authenticity. It's what allows you to bring your boldest self to the surface and invite him into a space where anything is possible when it's built on emotional safety and mutual craving. There's a misconception that rough sex is chaotic, wild, and purely physical, that it exists in a realm where control is lost and boundaries are blurred. But the truth is, the roughest moments are often the most carefully choreographed by unspoken trust. Behind every scratch, every grip, every push or pull is a silent agreement. I trust you. I feel safe with you. I know you see me, hear me, and would stop the second I need you to. That kind of intimacy doesn't happen by accident. It's built over time through emotional connection, vulnerability, and shared understanding. It's not about recklessness. It's about creating a container strong enough to hold fire without burning down the room. When a man craves rough sex, he isn't necessarily looking for domination or pain. Often, he's seeking intensity, a moment that feels primal, alive, unfiltered. And for that to feel good, for it to feel right, there needs to be a foundation underneath. That foundation is made of emotional safety. It's the kind of safety that says, you can let go here. You don't have to explain. You're allowed to want what you want. Emotional safety gives both partners the freedom to explore, to test the edges of pleasure without fear of judgment or harm. It turns sex from a performance into a playground where boundaries are respected, not ignored. What happens in a rough moment, whether it's hair pulling, choking, spanking, or power play, depends not on the act, but on the dynamic behind it. That dynamic must be one of mutual respect. If a woman grabs a man by the collar and whispers something bold in his ear, what makes it exciting isn't just the move. It's that he knows she wouldn't be doing it if she didn't feel secure with him. It's that she trusts him to hold her intensity without recoiling. And he trusts her to read him, to know the difference between pushing a button and crossing a line. That level of trust can't be faked. It's not something you build in a single night. It's created through consistent emotional communication, through listening and observing, through knowing each other's signals and thresholds. There is a difference between being rough and being careless. Carelessness is what happens when someone prioritizes the act over the connection. Roughness, when done right, is deeply attentive. It's about watching body language, listening for breath changes, noticing the subtle shifts that say, yais, more, or wet. Slow down. It's about being so tuned in that you can ride the wave of energy with precision and care. That's why some of the most intense encounters feel the most emotionally intimate. Because when someone is willing to take you to that edge and still hold you safely, it creates a profound sense of being seen and valued. Men who crave rough sex often crave something deeper than what the surface shows. They crave a space where they don't have to be in control, where they can be intense, yes, but also emotionally naked. Roughness becomes a language, one that says, I want to feel something real. I want to be shaken out of the ordinary. And that language only works when both people are fluent in emotional intelligence. It's not about just doing what looks hot. It's about tuning in to what feels right. It's about asking questions, checking in, creating codes and signals that make every rough moment feel like an extension of trust, not a breach of it. There's also a beautiful paradox in rough sex. The rougher it is, the more tenderness it requires underneath. It's not uncommon for couples to find themselves more emotionally connected after a physically intense session. Because roughness isn't about anger or violence. It's about expression. It's about giving each other the freedom to express power, desire, surrender, dominance without shame. And that freedom is only possible when emotional safety has already been established. When both people know they can stop at any moment and everything will still be okay. When they know they're being chosen, not just used. When the intensity feels like a dance, not a fight. In this space, verbal communication is key, not just in the bedroom, but outside of it. What do you want? What turns you on? What's off limits? These aren't awkward questions. They're invitations. They're how you tell someone, I care about your experience, and I want to create something unforgettable with you. Consent is not a checkbox. It's a process. It's what allows spontaneity to exist without danger. When a man knows he has consent, when he knows his partner is not only okay with the intensity, but craving it too, he can fully let go. And that's what rough sex is really about, letting go without losing control. There's also a mental shift that happens when both partners feel safe. They stop overthinking. They stop performing. They become more attuned to each other's energy, more daring, more creative. They allow themselves to feel instead of analyze. That's when roughness becomes more than just physical. It becomes psychological, emotional, even spiritual. It becomes a way of reconnecting with instincts, with raw human emotion, with the parts of ourselves we often suppress in polite society. It becomes a way of saying, you're allowed to be wild here. You're allowed to feel big things. And that kind of permission is rare. It's precious. It's worth cultivating. What makes rough sex deeply satisfying isn't just the rush, it's the aftermath. It's the way someone holds you after, the way they check in, the way they look at you with softness after showing you their fiercest energy. That contrast is where the emotional impact lies. That's where the memory is burned into the skin. Because it tells you, I saw all of you, and I still want all of you. That moment of return, of regrounding, is just as important as the moment of intensity. It seals the trust. It deepens the bond. It reminds both people that this wasn't just about getting off. It was about getting closer, understanding this changes everything. It removes the shame. It replaces fear with clarity. It empowers people to explore without guilt. It teaches couples that being rough doesn't mean being unsafe or unkind. It means being present, being connected, being real. When a woman steps into this energy with a man, when she matches his intensity with her own fire, when she shows him that she can handle all of him, his desire, his darkness, his softness, she creates a moment that is unforgettable. And she doesn't need to pretend or perform. She just needs to be in tune, to trust herself, to trust him, and to bring her whole heart into the moment. Rough sex, at its best, is not the absence of care, it is care expressed through fire. It's not the lack of love, it's love with the volume turned all the way up. It's not about losing control, It's about creating a space safe enough to give it up willingly. When that kind of trust exists, everything becomes possible. When emotional safety is the foundation, intensity becomes a shared language of passion and power. When both people feel held, respected, and desired, roughness transforms from something physical to something profoundly connecting. There's an idea that when a man craves rough sex, he's seeking to dominate, to take control, to unleash a part of himself that wants to lead with power. But that's only the surface. If you dig deeper, beyond the physical acts, the sounds, the positions, you find something much more vulnerable underneath. What most men are actually craving is to feel deeply, urgently desired, to be wanted with intensity, not just accepted with politeness. To feel like their presence turns someone on, like their energy stirs something primal in their partner. That feeling isn't about control, it's about being seen, being chosen, being devoured. When a woman expresses raw, unapologetic desire toward a man, it strikes a chord inside him that few other things do. It validates him in a space where so many men are taught to hide their needs or suppress their hunger for intimacy. It tells him that he's not too much, not too aggressive, not wrong for wanting to be wanted. And when that desire is expressed in bold, physical ways, grabbing, pulling, biting eye contact that says, "I want you now," it doesn't just feel good. It feels like a confirmation of his masculinity, his magnetism, his worth. That's the emotional hit men are secretly looking for when they crave roughness. They're not just craving friction. They're craving fire. That fire doesn't come from a place of needing to overpower. It comes from a place of wanting to be overpowered by someone else's passion. It's the thrill of being pulled in, of having someone lose themselves in you. And in a world where men are constantly expected to initiate, lead, and perform, the fantasy of a woman taking control, pushing back, grabbing him, whispering dirty things with zero hesitation, isn't about switching roles. It's about finally feeling pursued, finally feeling like he's the object of someone's uncontrollable need. That's the core of it. That's what so many men are really craving when they say they like it rough. It's important to recognize that roughness doesn't always mean dominance. Sometimes it means urgency. Sometimes it means, "I can't wait." And that urgency is what makes the moment powerful. When your hands don't hesitate, when your voice is firm, when your eyes stay locked on his with a look that says, "I need you right now," that's when his walls fall away. That's when he stops thinking and starts feeling. Because in that moment, he's not being dominated, he's being desired. And desire, when expressed with confidence and clarity, becomes the most seductive language you can speak. There's a shift that happens when a woman owns her sexuality, when she stops waiting for permission and starts leading with intention. She stops second-guessing whether she's being too much and starts leaning into the moment with presence and playfulness. That energy is magnetic. It tells a man that he doesn't need to perform or impress. He just needs to be. Because she's already into him. She's already craving him. And that awareness makes him want to give even more, to rise to the moment, to match her intensity with his own. That's where rough sex becomes something deeper. It becomes a dance of mutual giving, not taking. So many women worry that if they're too assertive, too vocal, too physical, they'll come off as aggressive. But what most men experience in those moments is relief. Relief that they're not the only ones carrying the weight of performance. Relief that someone else is bringing fire. Relief that they get to be the one being wanted instead of the one always trying to win approval. That kind of shift is powerful. It's freeing. It allows him to surrender without shame. And in that surrender, he becomes more open, more expressive, more deeply connected. Every move you make that says, "I want you," without apology, whether it's kissing harder, digging your nails into his back, pulling his hair, pinning him down, sends a message. It says you're not just present, you're all in. You're not just going through the motions. You're in your body, in your desire, in your truth. And that authenticity is what creates unforgettable moments, because you're not acting. You're not imitating someone else's idea of sexy. You're owning your own. And that ownership is what makes the entire experience feel real. When a man feels desired in that way, his walls come down, his mind quiets, his focus sharpens. He becomes more attuned to you, more present in his own skin, more generous with his energy. That's when sex becomes connection. That's when touch becomes communication. That's when a moment that started rough becomes something that stays in his memory, not because of what was done, but because of how it made him feel. Desired, chosen, consumed. The reason so many men crave intensity in the bedroom isn't because they want to hurt or be hurt. It's because they want to feel something real. They want to get out of their heads. They want to stop managing, planning, calculating. And the fastest way to pull a man into his body is to show him that you're fully in yours, that you're not holding back, that you're turned on and unafraid to show it. That's what creates heat. That's what takes things from mechanical to electric. Even in the roughest moments, it's never really about the act itself. It's about what the act represents. Passion, hunger, desire. And when those things are directed toward him, when he's the one being pulled into the fire, it lights something up inside of him that nothing else can. It wakes him up. It makes him feel, and that feeling stays with him long after the moment has passed. Because in that space, he wasn't just having sex. He was being wanted. Deeply, fiercely, unapologetically. You don't need to play a role to give him that. You don't need to follow a script. You just need to let your desire lead. Let your body respond without overthinking. Let your hands move with purpose. Let your words come from instinct. Because when you show up in that way, when you strip away performance and lean into presence, everything becomes more powerful. Every kiss, every touch, every rough moment becomes more than just physical. It becomes emotional, intimate, real. That's what men are truly craving, not just to dominate, but to be desired in a way that feels undeniable, to be met with a fire that says, I choose you now, to feel like their presence turns someone on, not just their actions. That's the craving behind the craving. That's what gives rough sex its emotional depth. That's what turns physical intensity into unforgettable chemistry. That's what separates a good night from a night that stays burned into memory. When you understand that his desire for roughness is really a desire to be wanted, everything changes. Your approach shifts. Your energy becomes less about performing and more about connecting. You start seeing every move you make as a message. And that message, when sent with confidence, clarity, and raw desire, becomes the most powerful turn on of all. Because in the end, the roughest moments only matter when they come from the deepest place, the place where two people stop hiding, stop holding back, and just let the fire take over